Server hostility. What can you do about it? Hi, and welcome to Red Evony. I am Akayasha. You can call me Aka. Now, contrary to what you might believe, there are actually some good servers in Evony. Yeah, I know, it's not a myth, okay? And some people have told me about how nice their servers are. However, for a lot of us, that's not the reality that we face. For some of us, we are in servers that were good in the beginning, but have now turned bad. And unfortunately, for some, we're in servers that were just downright awful from the very beginning. So, what we want to do here is to lay out a few tips that will help you to survive in those servers. Okay? Yes, I know. Some people will be like, okay, just quit the game or just quit the server, that kind of thing. Yes, both of those are possibilities. However, for people that have decided to stick it out, these are some tips that are going to help you. Now, aside from the tips that we lay out here, if you know any other good tips that would help people in these kind of situations, please feel free to drop them down in the comments below. And if you're planning on doing any coining in this event, the channel has an APTOIDE code that will be running for the entire weekend. So use the code, get yourself some savings, and help support the channel in the process. And if you're not yet using APTOIDE, there's a Discord link in the description of the video to help you with setup, so you should really consider getting it. Alright, so the first tip that we want to go through, and this is arguably the most important one, is that you have to maintain your bubble. Even if you forget everything else that we talk about in this video, if you don't have the habit of being able to maintain your bubble, then there's no point, all right? You'll be burned over and over and over again, and that's just all it's gonna be. And in fact, if you're someone that has trouble maintaining your bubble, I'm gonna be straight with you, okay? In an Evony sense, you are for the streets. All right? That's just what it is. You are for the streets. Now, if you don't want that, you need to keep your bubble up. Okay, now some tips that we can give for maintaining your bubble, and these are things that I do. Two main things, okay? First thing is that before I go off the game for the day, so the very last thing that I do when I'm going off the game is I check my bubble. If you're going off to sleep, and make sure that you have at least 20 to 24 hours on your bubble. Because we all have work, lives, things like that. You don't know what the next morning is going to be, so make sure you have enough time on that bubble. In addition to that, I always make sure that once the time on my bubble is less than 5 hours, I renew it. Now, the next tip that I want to give you guys, and this is just a very common sense tip, is to avoid world chat. Okay? Just downright avoid it. If you're in a hostile server, there's really not much benefit to being on world chat, trash talking and doing all that kind of stuff. Okay? When you are in a hostile server, best thing for you to do is to stay under the radar. Just do your thing quietly, stay under the radar. Yes, there are times when you might need to respond to some certain things in world chat, but that's it. Respond, go off. Okay? So yes, the next thing that you want to do is, if you have, let's say, certain alliances that are causing problems on your server, one tip for you to do is to observe their active times. Make a note of what time they are most active during the day. If it's a particular player, let's say you have a very big player that is causing problems on your server, observe what times they are active. Observe what times they are rallying. Observe what times they are going into battlefield and things like that. I'm sure most of us know the old saying, when the cat's away, the mice come out and play. So you need to know when that cat is off the game so that you guys can do your thing. Okay? Then the next tip I'm going to give you guys is that there is safety in numbers. from my talks with a lot of people, I know that this is one that some people don't really have the appetite for. But if your server is a hostile server, it's a very important one. There's safety in numbers. You will have to join up with another alliance and make sure that you guys have more people to deal with whatever you're dealing with on your server. Okay? Case in point, I'm not in my regular alliance anymore. Okay? Me and my guys, we joined up with another alliance to make a bigger alliance. And right now, if we check our alliance power ranking, we are second on our server. And it makes dealing with the issues that we have a lot easier. So, my advice, get together with similar-minded people on your server in different alliances, join together, make a bigger alliance, and deal with the issues like that. Of course, being in a bigger alliance with more players has more benefits than just dealing with hostility on your server, but those are things that we are not discussing in this video. All right, now the next tip that I want to give you guys is to make sure that you have an offline forum where people can reach you when you are off the game. Okay? Can't stress how important it is that at least one person in your alliance can contact you when you're off the game to tell you to come on. So make sure that you have that with your alliance mates. All right. Now, another tip that I want to give is that if you're into gathering and your server has a problem with, people tiling and stuff like that, a couple tips that you can take when it comes to gathering is, one, make sure that you are gathering far away from your hive. If you have a problem with tiling, it's very easy for people to spot your tiles when they are very close around to your hive. So what you want to do is to find tiles that are farther away from your hive. Okay, so take this one for example. This one is 226 kilometers from my hive. That's a good distance. Okay, I recommend anything between 150 and 300. So find those tiles, send your troops out there. Then when you're sending your troops, please, for goodness sake, do not send your top tier troops. Okay? That's just a disaster waiting to happen. What you want to do is scroll all the way down and use T1 troops. Now, we know that when it comes to gathering, Siege is probably the best one to use. However, if you have a problem with tiling, don't use Siege. The reason why I say not to use Siege is because when they kill your Siege, you need gems to recover them. That can get expensive. Now, the troops that I would recommend you use are T1 mounted troops, T1 calves, because these days, a lot of people have a ton of them. And if your tiles are actually hit, those T1 calves will go to your hospital and you can recover them for little or nothing. So, T1 calves. Alternatively, if you have T1 ground, then use that as well. Okay. Now, another important tip, which a lot of people on hostile servers deal with, is clearing their farms. Clearing your farm can be a bit of a tricky situation when you are dealing with a hostile server. So, there are 3 things that you want to keep in mind when you are trying to clear your farm and you're on a hostile server. Time, location, and load. Okay? Time, we've talked about already. You want to do it at a time where the problem people are generally going to be off the game. Now, of course, there's no 100% guarantee that you can get it exactly right and everyone is off. But if you know the people that cause the most problems and you can sort of time it in a good way, maybe when they're in battlefield or something, then that's a good one. The next thing is location. You want to do this from a very discreet location. All right? So you might want to come all the way to one of the corners of the map, maybe somewhere like here, and do your thing. That makes it a bit harder for them to find you. And if you're in a populated alliance, then they might not really notice when 1 or 2 keeps are in and out. particularly if it's a situation where you guys move about a bit or you still have some spaces in your alliance. All right. Now, the next thing is that you want to make sure that when you're clearing your farm, you increase the load that you're using. Here is an example of the last time I cleared mine. And my setup, I'll admit, might not be the best in the world, but with what I currently have, I can clear 2 billion resources with a single hit. Okay? So if you set it up like that, then even if you have 10 billion resources each in your farm, you can clear that in a matter of minutes. Typically, you should be aiming to clear your farm in about 3 minutes or less. All right? That should be enough time for you to go unnoticed and do what you need to do. And for you to set up your clearing march so that you can maximize the load that you have, there are a few things you can do. The main thing, though, is to make sure that you have a setup like this, where you have Amir Timur as the main general and Attila as the assistant. Okay? You might not use these exact same generals, but I find that this is the best combination for me anyway. Now, the skill books you want to have on the generals, you want ground troop load if you're using ground troops, and siege troop load if you're using siege troops. Then you also want to have march size. Those are the 3 main books I would recommend you have on your generals. Now, when you're setting up your main general, in this case, Amir, you want a setup like this, okay? When you're picking your gear, and in this case, King's gear or Dragon gear works perfectly fine. The main things that you want to focus on is that on the gear piece, you want anything with troop load or march size. Okay, so if we look at this weapon here, right? If you see the main stats at the top there, at the last one, it has troop load. Okay, you want something like that. And if you look at the ring, right here, it has march size. Okay, so those are the kind of things that you're looking for. Then, if you have the refined stones to spare, okay, you'd want to do some refining on the gear. And this refining doesn't have to be too costly, but you would want to get a few load refines on the gear. So take this one for example, okay? I've got mostly siege load and a ground load in there. So you want something like this. Now you can refine the chest piece, the boots, and the ring for load. So that's something that you should be looking to do, and it would significantly help you out when you're trying to clear those farms quickly. In addition, you can also add a spirit beast to this general. Good options would be the Lord of Lava, which has troop load, or the Behemoth King, which has march size. So if you can put those spirit beasts on your general, that would also help as well. All right, now the next tip that I want to give for surviving a hostile server is that you need to be able to strike back. There is no fun when you or your alliance mates are constantly on the receiving end of the hostilities. So you need to find a way to strike back. However, I want to make a point here and make sure that you have the mentality of not starting stuff, but finishing stuff. Okay? I'm sure a lot of us know the song by the late, great Michael Jackson. So you want to be starting something. You got to be starting something. I say you want to be... Yeah, no, you don't want to be starting nothing. Okay? What you want to do is you want to be finishing stuff. All right. So the rule that I follow is I give what I get. Now, some people might think that that's a bit extreme and it's only fueling the hostilities even more. But my experience, and I'm being honest with you guys, is that when people are being hostile to you and you don't do anything, they just keep coming at you. At the very least, if you strike back, it makes them know that, okay, they need to be careful about what they're doing. So take that advice for what you will. Now, the final tip that I have is that one of the best ways for you to continue to survive in a hostile server is to make sure that you are continuously growing and developing. Okay? Real truth, there are very few people that are enthusiastic about hitting a strong player, or at least a player that they know will not be an easy kill. So just make sure that you're continuously grinding, make sure that you're growing your keep, make sure that you're getting the stuff that you need to develop your generals and grow in the game. That's one of the best deterrents to hostility in Evony. Now, with that being said, there are a lot of things that you can do to make sure that you're growing quickly in the game. However, I have one particular tip which I feel is the best to help you grow quickly. And if you check out this video here, I go over that one special tip that I guarantee that it will make you grow quicker in the game. So if you haven't seen it, be sure to check it out. That's it for me, guys. Thank you very much. Aka signing out.